Congratulations, coach. You have just secured a new coaching job. Either it's your first coaching job or maybe you're transferring to another school or another program and you're excited and you want to build a winning culture right now. But my name is Rick Williams, better known as Coach Rick. And in today's video, we are going to talk about how to take over a culture and create a winning environment right away. How do you do that? Well, I have a proven system, the 4 Ps of winning. And I want to talk to you about those today. And it's going to help you build the cultures that you want to build. Let's get into it. Let's get better together. If you will take your job and immediately start thinking about the job in these 4 sectors, it's really going to help you put a framework behind the work that you have to do to hit the ground running. I've done this before. I've been coaching since 2004. Every time I've taken over a culture, I am proud to say that I have increased the winning percentage at that culture in year 1. And I do it with this proven system. It just simply works. And I believe in it. How does it get broken down? Number 1, the very first P that I want you guys to focus on when you get your job is the people. Nothing is more important than the people. We have to constantly remind ourselves as coaches that nothing about our craft is ultimately about us. We ultimately have to be very sacrificial, very selfless when it comes to our perspective on our everyday. The job is about other people. And I think you know that. I don't think if you didn't know that, you wouldn't have the job. You wouldn't be passionate about this craft. You'd go make money somewhere. But we're in this craft because we're passionate about helping other people. So remind yourself of that every day. And so since I know that you know that, what I'm going to do is tell you my proven system on how to basically understand how to categorize the people in the culture that you're in already. What you're going to see with this Venn diagram here is that there's really only 4 types of people that you can come across in your sports culture. The number 1 is you're going to find people who are extremely productive. They get the job done. They're talented athletes. They're talented assistant coaches, and they just produce for you. They put up numbers, and it's irregardless of how they feel or how they treat you or how they treat others. It has nothing to do with their attitude. They're just good at what they do. I remember my very first job was selling timeshares. I was 16, 17 years old. And back then I was picking up the phone and telling people that they won a timeshare, and it was all numbers. It was kind of boiler roomish. It paid the bills. But I remember having like 5 sales on the board and someone else would have 30 sales. And I would come in at 6:05. The shift was from 6 to 9 every night. And I would come in at 6:05 and my manager would be very upset with me. He'd be like, "Hey, Rick, you're late." I say, "Well, Johnny's late." This is back in my blame days. My manager would say, "Look at Johnny's board." Johnny would come in at 6:30, but Johnny had 30 closes on him. He was more productive than I was. So my point is that the more productive people in your organization, you have to identify them. If you want to win, you've got to find those productive people and know who they are. Number 2, if they're not productive, then they must be responsive. So these are the people in your organization. If they're athletes, these are the ones who are on time to every practice. They're the ones that say, "Yes, coach," after every direction. They're the ones that touch the line on every sprint. They're the ones that know the sets. They watch the film. They've got an attitude that makes you just love being around them, and you know you can build around them. You don't bring in productivity when it comes to assessing someone's responsiveness. If they are there for you, if you can count on them, if they are consistent, then you categorize them as responsive, and you will find that you can do a lot of winning with those people. The other ones are obvious. If you have just productive people and responsive people, then you have people who are either neither or people who are both. Now, the people who are neither, those are an easy conversation to talk about. If someone is neither productive nor responsive, then you owe it to yourself and the best version of yourself and the culture that you're trying to build. You owe it to yourself to fire fast. I know, very insensitive thing to say. It's not a matter of humanitarian or kindness. It's just a matter of fact. It's what we must do. If someone is neither productive nor responsive in your organization, you have to let them go. If winning is your goal. Now, if your goal is to simply just make sure that you're benevolent and loving and kind to everyone, then keep everyone right in place where they are and put yourself through the struggles of trying to win with people who aren't conducive to winning. You could try that. That's not the way I roll. When I come in, I identify the productive, I identify the responsive, and I quickly identify the neither. And if they're neither, they have to go. Then you have to identify the both. If you have players on your team, coaches on your staff, administration, anyone around you who is both productive and responsive, circle them, get them in. Those are your team captains, those are your leaders, those are your stars, those are the ones that are going to lift you to a new space. The rest of the work is pretty obvious. Once you've identified who is who, then you've got to push the productive people to be more responsive, and you've got to coach the responsive people to be more productive. because the more people we can put in the middle, the more winning happens naturally. You'll hear it all the time. People will talk about Phil Jackson and they'll talk about how great of a coach is he really, because he got to coach Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant. He got to coach some of the greatest players I've ever played. How good of a coach is he really, right? Because when you have the right people in place, your coaching prowess isn't quite the story. And that's really what you want. Now, I would make the argument that that makes Phil Jackson every bit of a great coach as any other, because to galvanize all those personalities and to get those extremely productive individuals to be also very responsive is a difficult thing to do. People talk about how he always had some of the greatest athletes, and that's how he was able to win 11 championships. But my argument to that is, well, how do you get talented athletes to come play for you if you don't have a reputation for molding them into being better people? So it doesn't matter. Someone comes to you as extremely productive. They're just Allen Iverson level talent. They've got a lot of attitude and they give you a lot of grief and they're hard to work with. Coach them. You need those players. You've got to figure out a way to reach that player and get them to be more responsive. That's your goal. And then same thing, you got that Rudy type, right? You got that player that you can depend on. He's just he or she is not very tall, not very athletic, not very fast, and can't produce. You got to get them in the gym and you've got to figure out a way to maximize their potential and get them to produce more. Those are my tips on people. Once you have the right people in place, the rest of this is kind of like going downhill. It's a lot easier to do with the right people in place. That's why we start on our 4 P's of the winning culture. Start with people. Now, the most important thing after that is you have to have the right processes. Your process has to be pristine. It has to be something that the people can rely on. And in order to do that, there's 2 things that I want you to remember. These are key. You have to have strong communication and you have to be consistent. We could talk to you about what that actual process should be. At AGB Coaching, we work with coaches and we help you come up with a process on how to develop your practice plans, what to do on your game days, what to do in your off season, what to do in your in season. So we can break all that down for you. But we also come to you here in this space, acknowledging the fact that people have their own process. I am sure by this time in your career, you have a philosophy. There's a way that you want to be in practice. There's a routine that you want to have down on game day. And so my suggestion to you is to know that, embrace that, and maximize that. And so what I want you to do is have your own process, but then make sure that you communicate that process clearly to all of the people that we've established are going to help us win. Too many times people come in and they have a process in place. They may say it at a parent meeting. They may mention it at the first practice, right? They'll say, I've articulated it to you before. So now that I've said it to you, then you should know it. But this is the key to solid communication. Communication on your process is done once the people know, maximize, and embrace their role. So if you have only said it to the point where you understand it, then the communication role is not done. You have to express your process to your people in a way that they know it, they embrace it. And those two are not the same thing. Someone could say, well, I know that you want me here 15 minutes before practice. I know that, but I think as long as I'm here before practice starts, I'm in good space. So they haven't embraced it. They understand the knowledge, but to them, they're still holding on to their process, their philosophy, maybe what the other coach last year did. So you've got to make sure you keep communicating until they've embraced it. And you got to tell them, without embracing this 15-minute ideal, you're not in line with our process. It's so important. And I see coaches make that mistake all the time where they think, well, I said it. Yeah, but have they embraced it? So once they've embraced it, then you want to find those that are maximizing it, where they're getting there, not just begrudgingly 15 minutes before, but they're getting there ready to give high fives. They're laced up. They're having fun. They're loose. They've used their visualization. They're ready to go 15 minutes before practice. So know, embrace, and maximize your communication. That is the key to having the right process. The other thing that you need to do is be consistent. Make sure that you show up every day as the same coach. I'm not saying that you're a robot and you can't be human and say, hey, you had a bad day. But when you have a bad day, you have to be self-aware enough to let your people know that that's the case. Because if they start to understand that the rhythm of following you changes based off of your mood, that's a difficult thing. It does not lead to winning. When people know that the person that they're following, they can count on, they're going to be consistently a particular way. And whenever their humanity kicks in, they're going to have the self-awareness to turn around and say, hey, that was on me. They're going to hold themselves accountable. The other thing that can get involved with that can break the consistency, going back to the people, is that sometimes, this is very common, we have the tendency to treat the productive people different than we treat the responsive people. But it is so important that we are consistent across the board with the ones who are on either side of our Venn diagram. The people that you want to identify as favorites and the people that you want to treat differently, because I always say coaches absolutely do have favorites. We did a video a few weeks ago where we talked about what to do if you are the the coach's favorite or if you're not the coach's favorite. So coaches definitely have favorites, but we want you to identify those favorites based off of those who are both productive and responsive. But if one is only one or the other, then I want you to be consistently pushing both to meet in the middle. So some coaches just happen to have a lot more patience with productive people. They're driven by the talent that the person brings to the table, so they're a lot more patient with their productivity, and they don't really push them on responsive. And I don't think that leads to winning. Likewise, some coaches are so attitude driven and they want people to be so responsive and do things my way or else that they don't acknowledge in order to win, you still need people to produce. So you cannot have an environment where everyone is responsive and no one's producing. You cannot have an environment where everyone is super productive but no one's responsive to your leadership. So push them equally, be consistent in your communication, and you will have a strong process in place. So your people are in place, your process is in place, and the next thing you need is you're going to need a lot of this. You're going to need some patience. We come into these programs and right away we're so competitive. We're alpha male, we're alpha female, and we want to win right now. And so that lack of patience actually leads to it taking longer to win than it should. But if we come in with the mindset that we understand there's a lot of stakeholders here. You've got players who were used to playing for a different program. You've got administration that was used to leading a different type of coach. You've got parents that were used to being in a particular role. I'm not going to use the names because I didn't actually do my full research on this particular story, but I read the story the other day where the coach was actually fired because the parent sued the school because the coach cut someone in their first year that was actually coached by the head coach the year before. So I believe the story goes like this. I'm the assistant coach. I'm assisting with a head coach. The head coach cuts a kid because he has a bad attitude. He's not responsive. The mom of the kid who gets cut files a complaint against the coach, gets the coach fired. Then when the assistant coach gets the job, the school made an agreement. There could be no retribution on the student because of the mom filing the complaint. So the assistant coach gets the new job and he immediately cuts the kid whose parent filed the complaint. I know this is a convoluted story, but I hope you guys are with me because it's important for us to all learn from. So he comes in and right away he says, I'm going to pay back my head coach. This parent went after the head coach, and so I'm going to cut their kid. Well, the parents sued the school because in the original complaint, there was supposed to be no retribution. Obviously, cutting the kid was what they considered retribution. Long story short, there was an administrative leave for the coach, and then he was reinstated. He coached out the rest of the year, and then at the end of the year, he has been dismissed. And so I'm learning from that story, and I'm saying to myself, everybody here has to be more patient. That assistant coach that took that job has to have patience with the parent that was upset with the coach before. You guys have got to understand that people have different expectations depending on where they are. We have to end this little tiny war that is between parents and officials. All of these mini wars are all getting in the way of athletes. I say that truly, and I mean that. And that's one of the reasons why I come to this space, is because I want to speak authentically and honestly to these problems. And so if you just got your job, I'm asking you, I'm telling you, if you want to win, you have to present yourself as a patient person. You have to work with varying types of parents. And I understand that parents can be difficult. I understand that officials can be difficult. Athletes can be difficult. But the process of winning is supposed to be difficult. I always say that if you are pursuing easy, you are guaranteed difficult. That's exactly how you make sure that life is hard, that winning is hard, that you avoid difficult things and you try to make everything easy. That's the fastest way to make everything difficult. So likewise, the fastest way to winning and the fastest way to making life pretty simple is to pursue things that are difficult. Having a good relationship with every parent, no matter what perspective they're coming from, is difficult. And I encourage you guys to have the patience that it requires to do that. Because if you can do that and you can get a family of 15 athletes and 15 sets of parents on one page, you are on your way to winning. I promise you that. So not only do you have to have patience with the stakeholders, the parents and the athletes and the administration, but you also, this is the one that we forget a lot, you have to have patience with yourself. You were a player and you demanded a certain level of talent and a certain level of effort and a certain level of energy from yourself. And so now you are going to demand that same level of energy and effort from every player that you coach ever. I respect it. I understand it. And most athletes, a lot of athletes will respond well to that level of pushing, but not every athlete is the same. Not every family is the same. And so I want you to be patient with yourself and your ability to wait for people to come along with you. This is not the same as playing. When you were playing, the only person that you had to take care of was you. You had to bring your energy every day. Coaching is not like that. That's why some of the greatest players of all time either didn't become coaches at all, or when they tried it, it wasn't for them. Because this craft is about about putting yourself second and putting your players first. And that requires a lot of patience with yourself. So give yourself patience, put that inner athlete away. Keep pushing yourself to have your process in place, but know this is going to take time. And this actually changes quite a bit depending on the level that we're talking about. If you're in youth sports, patience is absolutely required throughout. If you're in high school sports, then depending as they get older, you'll need less and less. College sports, the high levels, less and less. These are very high level athletes. Depending on the level that you're at, you're going to need a different amount of patience, but everybody is going to need to have patience with themselves. Now, the last thing you need is you need to start marking your progress. It's very, very dangerous to get into a situation where you say, hey, everybody be patient with me, but you cannot speak to any progress. And I'm talking about from a day-to-day standpoint. And it could be 1%, 2% increment. You don't have to go from a 0-win team to a 20-win team in year one. You don't have to go from 5 people being late to practice on day 1 to nobody being late on day 2. But you do want to have measurements in place to be able to track your progress. We did a video last week on visualization, and what we talked about in that video is being able to see the best version of yourself before it happens. We talked about how faith is the substance of the thing that you're hoping for. So I want us to be reminded of that now, that you have to have faith in place that knows we are going to get this done. And so you're going to put down on paper the goals that you have in month 1, in week 1. Chart your goals so that you can visually see where you can mark off the progress. This is what it's going to do for you. When you start to see progress in any one of your goals, it's going to add not only your confidence in your ability, but it's going to add in other people's confidence in you. And when those haters come, because they will always come when you're trying to turn over a culture or you're trying to win on the back end of any worthwhile goal, there's always some difficulty. There's always some sense of resistance. When that resistance comes, you'll be able to use progress to combat it. The other thing that we can't forget to do when we're in the stage of progress is we have to celebrate. So often we have the end goal in mind. You know what the final picture looks like. And until that picture is in place, you're going to reserve your celebration because you know there's so much left to do when it comes to building a winning culture. But the danger in that is that you forget the momentum that joy brings to a family. Joy actually helps when everything is about looking at things with a critical eye and saying what we're not doing. Then you're missing out on momentum. So by tracking your progress and then celebrating your wins, no matter where you are, celebrate the minor victories. Every single time you have a goal that is checked off and we're getting better, we have to celebrate that. We've got to send high fives and good energy and synergy through our locker room and through our teams. You have now the 4 P's in place in order to build a winning culture. You're going to get the right people in place. You're going to come up with a process, and you're going to be extremely consistent in that process. You are going to enact patience, not only with those people around you, but most importantly, patience with yourself. And then finally, you're going to mark your progress and celebrate your progress. If you'll do those things, you are on your way to building a winning culture. We would love to help you here at AGB. At AGB Coaching, we work with coaches, parents, and athletes to help them achieve their goals, to get better at whatever it is that you want to do. For you want to build a winning culture. Why not join a community of other coaches and athletes who are doing the same thing? Every Sunday night, we meet as a community and we talk about all the things that it takes to win. And you as a coach get to come in and contribute to that conversation. So instead of just working with your athletes every day, imagine you're able to come in on a Sunday night and talk to athletes from all around the country and get their point of view. Because that's something we don't do enough as coaches. Our job is to talk. Our job is to teach. Our job is to be the smartest person in the room and to coach other people. But we have to remember to listen. And so that's what I love about the AGB space. We bring athletes together and we say, speak up, help us grow as coaches. How are you guys feeling? What's it like to balance school and athletics in 2024? Most of us played 10, 15, 20, more than 20 years ago. Help us understand how to connect with you right now. We do all of that in AGB and we want you to be a part of it. If you're interested, I want you to click the link below. If you like the videos, if you're vibing with what we do, go ahead and hit that subscription button, hit that like button, comment on our videos, send them to your friends. We're here to help you always get better.